Hey class, in this video I'm going to be talking about images and rendering an image in P5. We're going to add this along with the previous video on text to create a meme or a logo for this week. So I'll demonstrate some different properties of using an image in this video, and then you guys combine that with the text that we used in the last video to create your meme. So let's get started. I'm going to open up GitHub and make sure everything is up to date. And let's go ahead and open in Sublime. We'll be working with the same files from last time. So here's our meme version 1 and our sketch.js. We have a bunch of text here. You're gonna probably want your text to be on top of the image. I'm gonna comment out the text for now, just so we can work with the images on their own. So I'll kind of leave this stuff down here, but I'm gonna add some image stuff up here. So I'm gonna move this down a bit. And I'll return that to normal when I'm done. To work with an image, obviously we need to add an image. So unlike shapes or text or other things like that, images are something that we will create or get from another source, like we could make it in Photoshop. I'm going to download something from Google Images just as an example. There are also a lot of great websites like archive.org where you can get Creative Commons images that you can use for your projects. Let's get started. I'm going to just make sure the Sublime server is running and open up a new window. And I'll go to localhost 8080. And I don't have my link yet. I'll add that when I'm done with this part. So I'm just going to type in meme version 1 here. So I commented out the text, which is why we don't see it there. And I'm going to open up the console in case I have any errors. And then let's quickly just take a look at the P5 reference. So under reference, we're going to go to image. And so there's a few different things related to an image. We're going to be using the load image function first to load an image into data. And then the image function is how we actually draw the image. So the image function is a little bit like the text function in the sense that the first argument is the image data. And then we have the X and Y, the position for the image. And then optional is the width and height. So if we don't include the width and height, it's just going to draw the image of whatever width and height it is, when you download it. But if we want to change the width and height of the image, we can add arguments in there. So I'm going to go to Google Images, and I'm just going to download something. Maybe I'll find a nice lizard image to go along with the theme for my site. And one thing I want to make sure to do here is go to settings or tools, go to usage and say Creative Commons. And so that way I can make sure that whatever image I happen to use, I know that it's okay for me to use it in my own project. So you can see there's like some sponsored stuff up here. I'm going to ignore that. Then this is the image I already used. So let's find a nice one. That one looks pretty cool. So we can go, one thing is I can usually just kind of drag this over here and see if this has like a download button. I'm going to click save image, open image in a new tab. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then I just want to drag this onto my project folder. So I'll open a Finder window. You can also do Command S to save, so that might be an easy way to do it. Or you can just drag it. So I can open up my Finder, go to my project, meme version 1, and then just drag this in there. And it has like a big long name, so I'm just going to rename this to lizard.jpg. You can use a JPEG, a PNG, or a GIF image as well. So I'm going to close this. And so the first thing that we have to do is load our image. And so to do this, we need to create a variable where that image data is going to go. So I'm going to say my lizard image. And then I'm not actually going to like say equals something because that happens in another function that we haven't done yet. That's the preload function. So after creating the variable, I'm going to say function preload. And this is like setup and draw. The difference is that preload actually happens before setup, and it's used to load external assets like images or audio or video. So we want to make sure that's all loaded before we actually try to draw anything on the screen. So it's really easy to load an image. I just say lizard image equals load image, and then I give the location of the image. Since it's in the same folder as my sketch, I have, in my project folder, I have the sketch, and then the lizard is just right there. So since it's right there, I don't need to add any folder names. I can just go directly to lizard.jpg. And something that people get tripped up on a lot is sometimes, this will be .jpeg or it'll be capital JPG. You just have to make sure that these are the same. So this is lowercase jpg. That's what it usually should be, but sometimes you'll see capital letters there or different versions of it. Just make sure that they're the same. It doesn't really matter what it is as long as they're the same thing. So sometimes your computer will be able to figure that out if you're working locally, but GitHub is going to have issues with that. So that's something that you want to double check. Make sure that this is exactly the same. If it's a PNG, use PNG. If it's a GIF, use GIF. So just be careful with that. So once I load the image, basically what that's going to do is it's going to literally read through every single pixel in this huge image. So if we scan in, eventually you can see each one of these little pixels is like a different color, and when we add all those together, we get this nice detailed image. So what P5 is actually going to do is read through every single one of those pixels and store them in a big piece of data called an array. And then when you draw the image on the screen, it actually reads through all of them and just puts them back in the same place. So it's actually quite a complicated process. Fortunately, P5 does it for us. We don't really have to think about it too much. So we've loaded our image. So this is actually a good chance to show why we use the server. The server is good for a lot of reasons, but one of the main reasons here is if I was just using my files and I tried to load an image, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get loading, and it's never going to go away. And that's because of this thing called a cross-origin request. So you can see here a CORS request. That's kind of new. It's been around for a few years, but basically it's to prevent, scammers and malware and viruses and stuff like that from injecting bad JavaScript into your files. Basically what this does is it says you can't load a JavaScript file unless it comes from the same origin, so it comes from the same server, or if it's expressly given permission. So that's why we can't just load our files here. It becomes an issue as you start to use more images and more media. You're going to get that issue, and there's really no way around it, no real workable way around it. So that's why we want to use our local host and create a server. So when I refresh the page, so now let's actually draw the image. So I just use the image function, just the word image, and then the name of the image is the first argument, lizard image, and then the position. So I'll put 0, 0 for X and Y to start. So there's our lizard image. You can see it's much bigger than our canvas. So we could deal with that by making the canvas bigger or making the lizard image smaller. A couple things I do want to show here. I can actually move my image around. So if I say like mouse X, mouse Y, now see how when I move the mouse, I'm actually moving the whole image. So just like everything else in P5, our images are interactive. And another thing that's kind of nice is I can change the image mode. So right now, the image is, the top left corner of the image is stuck to the mouse. But if I want to change that, I can change image mode to center, just like with the text align or the rectangle mode. And now the image is drawing from the center of my mouse. So that kind of feels a little bit more like it makes sense. Our image is still really big. It's kind of cool actually. Now we can kind of like reveal the lizard guy here, but we can make the image a little bit smaller if we just say like 100, 100, something like that. So now we have a smaller image. It's a little distorted. So another thing that we can do is we can actually get the width of the image. So I could say like lizard image.width, that's going to be the native width, and lizard image.height. And so if I want to scale it evenly, I could divide both of those numbers by 2. So now I'll preserve the resolution of the image, but it'll be half the size. Or I could do it by 4. Okay, so now I have this little lizard that I can run around and do whatever I want with. I can also make the width and height interactive. So if I have like the lizard at 0, 0, instead of doing width over 4, height over 4, I could also do like mouse X, mouse Y. So now the image changes with the mouse. Actually, this will be easier to see if I turn off image mode. So now you can see the width of the image matches the X position of the mouse. The height of the image matches the Y position of the mouse. So we can make the image interactive as well. And then, we could also just say, I only want the image to be like half of the screen. So we can do it that way, or height over 2, something like that. So you can change all of the parameters of the image to fit whatever it is your design is. And if I want to make the image the same size as the canvas, I can just say width and height. And that actually looks pretty good. I think, let's see, our canvas is 640 by 360, so it's twice as wide as it is tall. This image is not exactly the same as that, but it's pretty close, so that's why it looks all right. Another thing that we can do if we want to change the image is add like a tint. This is kind of processor heavy, so you can't do a ton of this, but we could put a tint here and just add like a color. So if I wanted to tint it kind of green, I could put 255 for green and 0 for red and blue. And now we have like this green image. So it's adding green with all the pixels in there. And I can also use alpha here. So if I say like 127, now it's going to be kind of see-through. So we can use a tint. It does add up. So that one's, actually doing math on every single pixel in the image. So it does actually use a lot of computer processing power. So you do want to be careful if you're using a ton of that. So let's get rid of that for now. And so then another cool thing we can do is actually look at the exact pixel data of an image. And we can do that just using the get method. So we can get the color at mouse X or mouse Y. So if we want, we can do a fill, and then we can get mouse X, mouse Y. So this looks a little complicated, but it'll basically give us the color at mouse X, mouse Y. So I'm just going to do an ellipse at mouse X, mouse Y, and you'll see the effect of this. Let's make it like 100 pixels. So now I can kind of like inspect what color is at any given part of this image. So that's kind of fun. That's another thing that we can use. This get mouse X, mouse Y just gives us the color of the image at whichever pixel the mouse is on currently. You can also use multiple instances of this image. So let's say I wanted to have 2 of these guys. So I could do like height over 2. And it's going to be a little distorted, but that's okay. So then I can copy this and just draw it again. And so then this one, I'll do the same thing, except I'll move it down to height over 2. So now I have 2 images of the lizard, and I can increase, the size of my canvas if I want it to be a little less distorted. And so then maybe I'll like, tint one of the lizards and not the other one. Oh, then I guess I have to untint it. 255. Okay, so if I do one tint, I guess I have to undo the tint before. So I could do something like that. I could also make it, interactive in different ways. But basically, we can create as many copies of that image as we want to. You could do a whole tile of images, a whole background of tiled images if you wanted to do that as well. Okay, so now we have our lizard. We can bring back our text. Obviously, this isn't really going to make any sense because it's just some default text, but there you go. Those are kind of your basics. The text is kind of hard to read there, so I might change that fill to like black or something. Still kind of hard to read, but anyway, you guys can play around with that and come up with something that you like. So again, this is just some kind of defaults for the first version of the meme. You don't need to have animation, you don't need to have interaction. It's just about getting the image placing the image in the way that you want to, and then adding text on top of it. So for the assignment, the image and the text should be related. So, hey guys, I'm editing the video now, but I realized I left out an important step, so I'm just going to go over that real quick. So I'm just going to open up my meme project again and go back to sketch.js. So one thing that students often run into as an issue is if you want to add another image. So I only added one image in the original video, but often you're going to want to use 1 or 2 or 3 or multiple images. And so we only need one preload function that's going to preload as many images as we want. So if you want to add another image, you can repeat this syntax and the load image syntax, but you don't have to use a new preload function. There's only going to be one preload function set up, just like the setup and draw. So I'll just demonstrate that real quick. If I wanted to add a new image here, I would just go to my browser. So I already have a lizard. Let's say I wanted to add like another animal. So I could go to Google Images and get like a cat image. Make sure to turn on Creative Commons licenses. And I'll find like a cat image that might go along with the lizard image that I already have here. This one's pretty good. The cat is like going after this flower. So I'll just grab that. So I'm just going to drag that into my meme folder. Uh-oh. So if you get this like WebP, this is another thing that's good to go over. You can't actually use that. That's not really an image. It's like some Google thing. So let's try that again. I'm going to try save image as. So sometimes you might have to try a couple times to get this right. So let's see if that works. So no, I don't want Google's WebP. So if you see that, Google WebP or whatever, we might have to go to the original website. Pixabay is like a image repository, so we might be able to just download it from here. Yeah, there's a free download button. So that's another good thing to cover, is if you do run into an issue like that, try just going to the original website. If they don't have a free download, just, you know, find a different image. I don't need it to be that big, so I'm going to go with this slightly smaller version and click download. Okay, so I had to do a couple things, but I got it to download. If you run into that, no big deal. If you do get stuck, just let me know and we can go over it together. So now I should have the cat image, and I can see at the end it does say JPEG, so that's what I want to make sure, you know, that I have a real image file. So I'm just going to change that to cat.jpg and throw that in there. And then I'm going to delete this WebP file. So that's not really going to be usable for my project. So I'll go back to Sublime. And so I'll make a cat image. So I can say variable cat image. Can try to spell it correctly. And then this is just exactly the same thing. So same preload function. I just add another line. Say cat image equals load image. And use the cat .jpg file name, and again we want to just make sure that this .jpg matches this one, so same spelling, same capitalization, everything. And then once we have that in there, I can just replace my lizard image with my cat image if I want. So let's go to localhost and take a look at that. And so there's our cat image. It's a bit distorted, so if I wanted to make it less distorted, I could you know, change the width of the scene or change the height or something like that. But basically, if I want to add a second image, it's pretty easy. I just need to use the same preload function and add in a new variable, use the load image, and then draw the new image. So that's only if you want to add a second image, but I just wanted to cover that because that's an issue that a lot of students will run into. The thing that I forgot to cover that's kind of fun is the blend mode. This is something that you can use for lots of different shapes and images and stuff like that, but I think it looks really nice with text. So I wanted to cover this really quickly as well. So if I go to the P5 reference and search blend mode. So it's hard to see with these, but basically where it's blending together these colors, and so you have like these two lines, and then you have the multiplied factor of those colors in the middle. So it's especially nice to use with images and text where there's like a lot of detail. It's a little bit tricky to use, so a lot of the time I'll try to use it and it won't look right, and I'll just kind of plug in all these different options here. So again, this is like an optional thing, but it is a cool way to draw some text. So I'm going to add it to the bottom text down here. So I'm going to increase this a bit so it's easier to see what's happening. And one thing that you have to do to start is we don't want to blend everything. So just kind of like our fill or our stroke, we need to set the blend mode to, I think the value is normal to start, so it doesn't affect our whole scene. So I'm just going to do this right after the background, or I guess I could do it even before the background. Either one is probably fine. So I just want to set the blend mode to normal. So obviously that's not going to change anything, although I'm getting a warning over here. So this is a good reason to have your console open. It says normal has been deprecated for use in blend mode, defaulting to blend instead. Okay, so that message, it probably doesn't, you probably aren't familiar with the word deprecated, but that's a word that you'll see in code to say basically that, you know, this standard or this variable or this function or whatever is not being used anymore. So that's a warning they'll add in the code to say, like, you know, you need to update this. So they're saying they use blend instead. So I'm just going to switch this to blend. And so the warning goes away, so that's nice. So let's add a blend to this text at the bottom so we can blend it with the image. So I'm going to scroll down here, and I'm just going to, before I draw this fill and this text, I'm going to change the blend mode. And I'm going to start with add, so that'll add the pixel colors together. That didn't really work. Let's see if we change the color. Okay, so you can see that's working a bit, but it's a little bit hard to see. So we'll try a few others. I'm going to increase the text size a bit just so we can see this. I'm going to go a little bit more. Okay, so I'm just doing this temporarily so we can see how this looks. So let's try, I think difference will work here pretty nicely. So I'm going to try that. Okay, there we go. So you can kind of see what that's doing. If we look in this detail, it's taking the difference between the image and the white color of our text. So that looks pretty cool. So you're kind of combining the detail of image with the text. So that's a really cool effect that you can get when you're using an image with a lot of detail, or when you're using text, which kind of blocks out this part of the image. The color of the text also matters. So if we do the difference with 0, there is no difference because it's just 0. If we do something kind of in the middle, then, you know, we get a little bit of change there. Or if we do like a color, like let's say we did like something with red and green. Now there's blending like the yellow and the blue. So adding a color here also really changes the outcome. So that's difference. Exclusion says similar to difference but less extreme. Let's give that a try. Okay, pretty much is what it sounds like, but there's some really cool parts here, especially like where there's some detail in here. So the blend mode is a little tricky to use because sometimes you'll put something in and you just like won't see any result at all. But just keep changing the blend mode around until you get a cool effect. So multiply, you get a lot more yellow there, so that's probably not what we really want. Screen is the opposite of multiply, so let's take a look at that. That actually looks kind of cool. So the text is more of the yellow color, but we do see like a little bit of the detail of the image blended in there, so that's pretty cool. Overlay combines multiply and screen. Let's see what that looks like. That actually is pretty nice. There's a little bit more taken out of the text there. That's cool. These, I think, hard light, soft light. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of different stuff here. I recommend trying those out. You can get some kind of cool effects by throwing that in there. So again, it's not necessary for this assignment, but it is something that I just wanted to cover really quickly because it is a cool effect that you can use. I'm going to take a screenshot of this to use as my thumbnail. So I'm just going to call this meme version 1. So I'll open a new window and go to the downloads and throw this in here. And so let's go to the home page and add in our new link. So I'll close this up, go to index.html, and I'm just going to make a copy of this project. So I don't think we've done this yet because we just have 1, 2, 3. So yeah, as we go throughout the semester to add new projects, I'm just going to make a copy of this and paste it. And this is actually a new project. So I'm going to replace the source here with meme version 1. And the thumbnail is meme version 1. And the hypertext reference to the link is also meme version 1. And then finally, the name of the link is just meme version 1. So that should add a new link here. Okay, so yeah, we see the thumbnail, we see the link here. And there's our meme. So those are some of the basics of using text and using images. Feel free to explore these more and come up with your own idea for this. Anything that you want to make, as long as it is blending text and image in one project, is totally legit. So if you want to do like a logo for your name or some, brand or some idea that you have, or even like an existing thing, if you want to work with something that you like, is totally fine as long as the design is original. So you don't necessarily have to make like a funny meme or something like that, but if that's the direction you want to go, that's a good use of combining text and image. But any use of combining the two is totally fine for this project. And over the next couple of weeks, we'll add to this by going over some new programming concepts and also adding interactivity to make the meme, kind of fun. So yeah, that's it for this video. So I'm going to upload that. So I'm going to close out of here and go to my GitHub and just say adds image example, commit to master, and push origin. And for these ones with the images, you definitely want to make sure to go to your GitHub account and just make sure it's actually working, because this is usually when we first start working with images, that's when I usually start to see the most errors with like different naming conventions and stuff like that. So this will take a second to refresh. Okay, so there we go. So yeah, you just want to go in here and make sure, okay, this is all showing up, because this is, if you have anything misspelled or any issues like that, this is where you're probably going to see it. So once you confirm that, just grab that URL and submit it, and that's it.